In November of 1987, the last useful things inside Platte Valley equipment were 3 wooden crates no one wanted. Old Oliver bearings, carburetor parts, a stack of yellowed service manuals. The auctioneer asked for $100. Silence. Elaine Mercer lifted one gloved hand at 90. Sold. Across the empty service bay, Warren Pike watched her close the top crate. 20 years earlier, he had told her that old tractors were junk and farming was not work for a girl. Now the bank owned his building, and Elaine still owned the tractors. Warren looked at the crate, then at her. Are those Olivers still running? Every week. To understand why that answer hurt, you have to go back to April of 1967, when Elaine was 21 years old and had just inherited 280 acres near Paxton, Nebraska, split between winter wheat and milo. Her father, Samuel, had died of a heart attack beside a broken windmill. He was 54. By sunset that day, Elaine owned a farmhouse with cracked plaster, a tractor with a seized engine, and every lesson her father had ever given her. How to hear a bad bearing before it screamed. How to feel moisture beneath wheat stubble with 2 fingers. How to tell the difference between land that looked tired and land that had only been waiting. 3 weeks after the funeral, Elaine walked into Platte Valley Equipment in Ogallala and asked to see a tractor she could afford. Warren Pike looked at her mud-stained boots, then at the grease beneath her fingernails, then at the patched canvas coat that had belonged to Samuel, and he laughed, not because she had named the wrong model, because she had spoken as if the farm were truly hers. Warren wore a white shirt, polished boots, and the confidence of someone who had never been required to prove he belonged behind that desk. "What can I do for you, miss? I need enough tractor to work 280 acres. By yourself?" "Yes." His smile tightened. "Your father was a steady farmer, but this is not steady work for a girl your age. Lease the place. Sell the home quarter. Take a job in town." Elaine did not move. "Are you selling a machine I can pay for, or giving advice?" He showed her a 3-year-old case, 930. $12,400. 10% down. 8 years of payments. Warren called it an investment. Elaine saw a claim on crops that had not grown yet. She asked for something older. He told her old equipment was false economy. She asked about trade-ins. He said he would not put his name on junk. Then he leaned forward and softened his voice, as though courtesy could make the judgment smaller. "Miss Mercer, farming is already hard for men who know what they are doing." Elaine looked through the showroom glass at the bright red tractor under electric lights. Chrome, fresh paint, a payment book waiting in the office drawer. Her father had once told her, "Shine is what people notice. Staying power is what feeds you." She thanked Warren and walked out. Behind her, he told the parts clerk, "She will be back before planting." He was right about one thing. Elaine would return to that dealership. He was wrong about everything else. 2 Saturdays after Warren laughed her out of the showroom, Elaine drove 60 miles east to an estate auction with $1,400 in a flour sack beneath the seat. The sales was mostly scrap. Bent cultivator shanks, weathered seed boxes, a combine header with grass growing through it. At the far end of the yard sat 2 faded green tractors, a 1948 Oliver 88 and a 1951 Oliver 77. Neither one was pretty. One leaked oil at the rear main seal. The other had no battery and a cracked seat pan. But Elaine knew those engines. Her father had repaired Olivers for neighbors through every winter she could remember. She knew where the hydraulic lines rubbed. She knew which gears whined harmlessly and which ones warned of broken teeth. The auctioneer opened the Oliver 88 at $900. No bid. $700. Still nothing. Elaine raised one finger at $550. Sold. The Oliver 77 went for $625. When the clerk handed her the tickets, Elaine had $225 left. An older farmer named Leonard Baines watched her load the tractors. "You planning to part those out?" "I am planning to plant with them." Leonard studied her face, then glanced at the tool chest in the bed of her pickup. "You know what you bought? I know what is wrong with both of them." That answer changed the way he looked at her. He loaned her a trailer without asking for a deposit. For the next 17 nights, Elaine worked in her father's machine shed. She replaced the seal in the 88, rebuilt the carburetor on the 77, rewired both charging systems, and cut a new seat bracket from a discarded plow beam. She slept in 2-hour pieces. She ate standing up. By the second week of May, both Olivers started before sunrise. Not beautifully, not quietly, but reliably. Elaine planted 140 acres of wheat already prepared by her father. She put the remaining ground into sorghum. She ran one tractor until noon, switched when the radiator needed rest, then worked past dark by the weak yellow cones of 2 6-volt headlights. People watched from county roads. They did not call it courage, they called it denial. At the cafe in Paxton, men gave her until July. At the elevator, they gave her until harvest. Warren Pike gave her one breakdown. He arrived in June while she was replacing a cracked fuel line beside the north field. "This is not a sales call," he said. "That is new." He ignored that. "I heard you bought 2 Olivers from the Brant estate." "You heard right. Those machines were old when Kennedy took office. They were cheaper than your payment book." Warren looked across the field. "Your father knew his limits." Elaine tightened the fitting and wiped diesel from her fingers. "My father knew his land. There is a difference between knowing land and running a business. There is also a difference between owning a tractor and owing for one." Warren's jaw tightened. He warned her that one major failure could cost the crop. Elaine told him one bad loan could cost the farm. Neither persuaded the other. The first harvest did not make Elaine rich. The wheat averaged 26 bushels an acre. The sorghum was decent, not exceptional. After taxes, fuel, seed, repairs, and the note on a small grain truck her father had nearly finished paying, she had $3,800 left. She put it in the bank. That number looked strong in September. It looked tiny in January. The fields were bare. The house settled at night. Every room held something that had belonged to her father: his mug beside the sink, his cap on a nail, his handwriting on masking tape wrapped around coffee cans of bolts. One night, Elaine spread her bills across the kitchen table and realized how close failure lived. A dry year, a cracked block, a medical bill. Any one of them could take everything. For the first time, Warren Pike's advice stopped sounding insulting. It sounded practical. Elaine invited a neighboring operator named Carl Nissen to the farmhouse and asked what he would pay to rent her ground. Carl arrived with a typed lease, a fountain pen, and a number large enough to cover Elaine's taxes without her turning a wheel. $8,400 a year, guaranteed. He placed the contract beside Samuel's coffee mug and walked her through the terms. Then he said he would deep plow every field in spring. "Turn it black and clean," Carl said. "Your father left too much trash on top." Elaine looked through the kitchen window at wheat stems standing through the snow. Samuel had left that residue deliberately. She knew that much, even if she did not yet understand the whole system. Carl tapped the signature line. "You keep the house, I carry the risk." For nearly a minute, Elaine held the pen. She was not brave. She was tired, and the offer sounded like sleep. Then she asked Carl one question. "If you take the crop, who decides what happens to the ground?" "I do. That is what leasing means." Elaine put the pen down. Carl left angry. The contract stayed on the table until morning, unsigned. Years later, Elaine would explain it this way. "I was not certain I could farm it. I was only certain I could not hand the decisions to someone who saw the soil as waste." That winter, while cleaning the machine shed, Elaine found the thing that changed the farm. It was not money. It was not a deed. It was not a hidden tractor. Under a false bottom in her father's seed cabinet, she found 7 oil-stained ledgers tied with baling twine. Samuel Mercer had recorded 21 years of soil. Rainfall by field, depth of dark topsoil, dates when snowmelt soaked in instead of running off, sweet clover stands, wheat residue, earthworms after rain. He had mapped contour strips across every slope and tracked a rotation that most neighbors considered wasteful. Wheat, sorghum, sweet clover, then a season of heavy residue and shallow cultivation. He was not resting the land. He was storing strength in it. The ledgers showed that his fields held water longer after dry wind. They crusted less after hard rain. They needed less fertilizer to produce the same crop. On the final page, written in pencil, was a note. Elaine, bright paint is easy to buy. Soil takes years. Keep what holds. She sat on an overturned bucket and read that line until the words blurred. Then she built the next 20 years around it. Elaine kept the 2 Olivers. She kept the rotation. She kept every wheat stem she could on the surface to slow the wind. She seeded sweet clover when other farmers said the field should be earning cash. She repaired before failure, saved before spending, and refused to borrow against a harvest that existed only on paper. The results did not arrive like a miracle. They accumulated. 1 inch of moisture held after a storm. 1 fewer pass across the field, 1 repair paid in cash, 1 season without interest. By 1972, her wheat was running 8 to 12% above the county average. In the dry summer of 1976, nearby fields averaged around 14 bushels an acre. Elaine's north ground made 27. Not because she had better rain, because more of the rain stayed. Warren still visited once a year. At first, he came to warn her. Later, he came because he could not understand her. Those Olivers still working? Every week. You know I can put you in a new tractor with air conditioning. I know, power steering. I have arms, factory hydraulics. I have wrenches. By 1979, Elaine had $78,000 in savings. She owned the original 280 acres free and clear. Her tractors were older than some of the men offering her advice. Across the county, the opposite philosophy was taking hold. Bigger machinery, more land, higher yields, more borrowed money. The new tractors were powerful. The cabs were quiet. The paint shone in every farm magazine. Interest was treated like weather. Something unpleasant, perhaps, but manageable. Warren sold equipment as fast as trucks could deliver it. He helped farmers refinance one machine to buy the next. He called debt leverage. He called expansion survival. Elaine read the same magazines. She watched land prices rise. She watched variable rate notes spread from farm to farm. And in the margin of her father's ledger, she wrote one sentence: "Steel loses value the day it arrives." Soil gains value when nobody is looking. Then the early 1980s stripped the shine off everything. Interest rates climbed. Grain prices fell. Land values broke. Farmers who had expanded on paper discovered that paper could turn against them faster than weather ever had. Farm auctions became part of Saturday life. At first, people called them temporary. Then familiar names appeared on the bills. The Harlan Place, the Baines Quarter, the Cooster Ground along the creek. Men who had once teased Elaine for running obsolete tractors now watched their own machinery lined up in rows, each piece polished for strangers. Elaine attended those auctions quietly. She did not enjoy them. She knew what it meant to put a life's work under a lot number. In 1983, she bought 160 acres adjoining her south line for $61,000 cash. In 1985, she bought another 80 acres for $28,000. In 1987, she added 200 acres of tired, Wind-cut ground that no bank wanted to finance. She paid $72,000. Then she began rebuilding it the way her father had rebuilt hers. Contour strips, residue, clover, thyme. By the end of 1987, Elaine Mercer owned 720 acres. No mortgage, no machinery note, no banker deciding whether spring would happen. That same year, Platte Valley Equipment failed. Warren Pike had expanded the dealership during the boom. New showroom, larger inventory, floor plan financing tied to machines that no longer sold. When his customers could not pay him, he could not pay the bank. The liquidation was held on a gray Thursday morning in November. Elaine stood among mechanics, farmers, lenders, and bargain hunters. The bright tractors went first, then the service trucks, then the office furniture. By late morning, the story had caught up with those 3 wooden crates from the opening. Elaine paid $90, closed the top box, and heard Warren approach behind her. His voice had no fight left in it. "How much ground do you own now?" 720 acres. Warren looked smaller without the white desk, the showroom glass, and his name over the door. He stared at the crates. "I sold horsepower for 25 years. Elaine waited. "I thought power was what kept a farm alive." He looked toward the empty service bays. "But power is expensive when nothing underneath it can carry the weight," Elaine said. "My father called it staying power." Warren nodded once. "I remember Samuel, quiet man. He paid attention. I should have." For a moment the old humiliation stood between them. Then Warren said, "I owe you an apology. Not because my business failed, because I mistook confidence for knowledge. I looked at your age, your coat, and those 2 wrecks from an estate sale, and I decided I knew what you were." Elaine closed the crate. "What did you decide? That you were temporary?" Warren glanced at the auction workers removing the dealership sign. "I was wrong." Elaine could have given him the sentence back. She could have reminded him of the laugh. Instead, she said, "You were not the only one." That afternoon, she hauled the Oliver parts home. The 1948 Oliver 88 worked until 1993. The 1951 Oliver 77 ran until 2001 after 2 engine rebuilds and more seasons than anyone could count. Elaine farmed for 46 years. She eventually owned 960 acres, purchased a piece at a time and paid for before the next piece was considered. She never bought a brand new tractor. She did buy good used machines when the work demanded it, but every purchase had to pass one test. Would it make the farm stronger, or only make the farm look stronger? In 1999, a university conservation team sampled several of Elaine's fields. The oldest ground held nearly twice the organic matter of comparable fields nearby. Water entered faster, roots reached deeper. Wind erosion was dramatically lower on the slopes Samuel had first mapped decades earlier. The team asked Elaine for her method. She placed the 7 ledgers on the table. "My father kept what other people were selling," she said. "Residue, moisture, time, choice." When Elaine retired, she leased the farm to a brother and sister who had spent 10 years working for someone else. Their agreement included fair rent, a purchase option, and one condition. They had to continue the soil records. She gave them copies of the ledgers. The originals stayed in the farmhouse. Every spring, Elaine still walks to the barn and rests one hand on the hood of the Oliver 88. The paint is almost gone. The steering wheel is cracked. The seat she made from a plow beam is still welded in place. It does not look like the machine that saved a farm, that is the point. Warren Pike sold shine. Elaine Mercer built what could hold. And when the hard years put their full weight on both of them, only one had staying power.